that extent, almost by default, they had to be Australian poems. And I remember there was a lot of discussion at the time about multicultural literature. There was huge disputes in the late 1980s. I say huge amongst the tiny group of people who interest themselves in such things, in literature and so on. But I can't remember who was arguing against the idea that you could have an Australian poetry written in Greek or Italian or whatever. But one of the academics, one of the scholars who was championing the idea that, of course, if one way that immigrants eventually infiltrate the culture is through sport, then of course they must at some stage come through in the literature. There's a woman, I think her own background was Indian, Sneha Gunnu. I don't know if anybody remember the name or no, and I remember sending my poems. Is that? Hungarian. Is that right? Yeah.
Somewhere there.
Yeah. So I sent poems to her and said, look, I'm not asking for anything at all, except that I've been thinking about this myself. Is it the case that there is no possibility of a person engaging with Australia as an immigrant in literature to the point where it could be read as such by Australians? And she wrote a very nice letter back to say that as far as she understood the idea of this, and as far as she could understand and read the poems, that of course these were Australian poems, which I found very heartening. But I'd avís an sos an Australia is mó a bhí maigine agus mo chríosló agus mo hólia ag chasarás I dro an bhaile agus risil am deire go bhíocht an íocht ag an íana charna na filiíochta go féin a chuairt faoi Skáil nó faoi réir an Australia ach go raibh mo hóíocht a bogaráig I dro eile chana féin. The longer I was in Australia, the more my poems began to head back home, long before I ever thought about home myself. And I suppose the reason this is a kind of a roundabout way of setting a challenge for you all, which is to say that eventually, because whatever part of my imagination at least tends towards poetry, eventually discovered that it ran out of connections it could make with my life here in Australia, and started to move back to Ireland. About 3 years even before we went back, I was writing poems that were set in Ireland if I hadn't been there for a long time. And that's because ultimately I never became Australian in the way that I might have if I'd stayed here a long time, or in the way that you would be if you're born here and have lived here for a very long time. So, although I ultimately was unable to make this language a fully Australian one, there is absolutely nothing in the world to prevent any of you making the language an Australian language in a real and living way. And I'm conscious when I'm saying this that one of the impediments to the Irish language in Ireland is that people like myself who grew up in cities and in places distant and remote from the great that be, although we spoke and wrote Irish and read it from the age of 4 in the classroom and sometimes outside of the classroom, there was a very strong sense in our culture up until very recently that we didn't own that language, that it belonged to native speakers of the language who lived in remote country places that we didn't want to visit, even if we had relatives out there. There were strange people who lived in country places and killed animals for a living, and we didn't feel that that was our world. But there was a very powerful sense that, and I think it's one of the disabling things in terms of the revival of the language, that if you're from Dublin or Cork or even from Galway City, you don't have a primary title to it. Now, it took me a very long time to overcome that. I overcame it in Australia before. When I was in Australia, I had to think my way through these things. So I suppose, again, the challenge is that there is no good reason why you can't fully inhabit the Irish language, and if you're to inhabit it fully and continue to be yourself, then it's going to be an Australian language whether you wish it or not. Agus is stoilms tan réige cho cún agus cho lag le céad bliain agus le bhar céad bliain anuas go deastíonn pobl nua in áideanna nua le treise a chur sa teanga, le ní airsiú agus a leith nuamach agus is stoilm go bhfuil dóhan go bailith and so. The language is so small, there's such a small number of people who speak it, that to have a community of 100 speakers or whatever it might be, even if you only come together every now and again, you can actually significantly shift the language in a way that you couldn't possibly shift German or French or Dutch or English. Agus Mullen should more as on stroll or could have with or pain on Asul Brilliantishiv, Bishan Dana, Gomeshi and Tan, Australia, Amachasama, as he force in the 10 year. I didn't need to go on such length about that, we should have Hushbun and so, Don, I guess, Lane Don Pascalia or Haniganach in Liana, in Erin. I published 2 collections in Ireland this year, one in Irish and the other a bilingual collection, which was actually based on an older book in Irish, but the Irish language book came out in March, and because it was the 7th collection I published, I called it Idir Shop, which is a terrible abdication of imagination and responsibility. At the time I couldn't really think of anything else to call it. So, the first point, I was saying there earlier, I mean, most of my points moved back to Ireland before I did. Robert Frost puts this very well. Robert Frost says that home is where, when you have to go there, they have to let you in. That was my experience, certainly, with Ireland. And, but every now and again, in the last 14 years since I've left Australia, my imagination has gone back the other way, and I've written 4 or 5 poems that came out of nowhere, it seemed, but of course they didn't. They came out of the fact that a certain part of me is completely at home here. And Shotland sa Danta or Lunga and so in Australia, in Melbourne, and Panama Erna, Idir Cálín. Tá an na gúirteoirí hart is táimid hasamh ag stadan bhus, trasna na sráide ó ospidéal riamh na man, drein dochtagam lábhan in leamín. Tá áthas a chur dip in arda cín mar is canál, agus áras a drahar a cléasca a hiisce. Ein áin na dróracha thugas don mar báil, nílas a gom má halabhan dám, céin in óg a bhfuilim tú a hasamh le do bhurla beag dóchas is cacha. Ní adring ach leitad sráid bratan ceirúir lár agus pasáiste gear anti-seiptach, ach tá sé ró dhéanamh hena le dó siar ar na cuil bheoga in rompla lana. Má bháláid a chur tímpalacht is fiachant ar do húlan amach ar an gréadúr bocht ag stadan bhus, a bhfuil íon an conis ar a bhéal agus grain scríte ag na leanaí ar a lábha. Tá in é chur dip an stop, in nniuh a cléasca le hiisce, a mairach in a colla, caich ar ocht a máhar. In the meantime, visiting time is over, and I'm standing at the bus stop across the street from the Royal Women's Hospital, holding the children's hands as tight as I can. Happiness is prattling away non-stop as usual, while not so sure her brother is bursting for a kiss. After all the directions you gave me a short while ago, I can't for the life of me remember which window you're at with your little bundle of hope and shit. There's nothing between us along the width of Grattan Street, 4 floors and a short antiseptic corridor, but it's already too late to cross over the small potholes of the surface of time, to put my arms around you and look out over your shoulder at the poor fool standing there at the bus stop, smiling happily with his children holding his hands. Yesterday, talking non-stop. Today, bursting for a kiss. Tomorrow, still blind, asleep in her mother's arms.